Alright, what's up? As promised, a little late, but as promised, I'm back. Let me post about this on the Discord. Alright, post that. There we go. Uh, what was I gonna do? This. Yeah, there we go. Got the nice half screen setup. Perfect. Tired, man. I've taken to using the Twitch test app to ensure that my connection to one of the Twitch servers will be strong enough to maintain a semi-consistent 6,000 kilobits per second. And today it seems like the name of the game is the other New York City server. Different one than I was using last time. Ashburn still does not have its shit together. I don't know what's going on. Okay. Let's launch this. Can I get away with, like, troubleshooting this? Hmm. Alright, that's not gonna really tell me anything there. Okay, either way. Options. Alright. Back. Yeah. Launch. Good. Ah, yes. Associated Press. Thank you. All right, it looks like this is going to be the one news thing I have for today. And despite what the scroll bar suggests, this article from AP isn't that long, which is good. Otherwise, I can just concentrate on driving uh, in a way that indicates that I know how to play the game. That's all well and good. That's all I got to do. Newest version. Nice. Let's do it. Big full room. That's nice. It's always nice to see. I don't think I recognize anybody so far, which is, well, maybe Trivon. But interesting, because there always seems to be more people online with Retro Rewind than with CTGP. Oh, dang it. I just realized I forgot to test the audio before stream. Okay. I snuck in a little listen to the live feed as we're going here. I just muted the desktop audio, and it sounds fine for the most part. So that's all well and good. All right. Oh yeah, that's what I like to see. All right, now let's get started with the news. There's only one, like I said, only one item I wanted to talk about today. And from the Associated Press, we have Argentina's poverty rate spikes in the first 6 months of President Milei's shock therapy. Any lefties will hear the term shock therapy and instantly be like, understand what's going on here. But basically, for anybody who doesn't know the implications right away of the term shock therapy is what happens when you basically you take neoliberalism, the privatization of public services, the gutting of the social safety net, and basically like globalization and hollowing out union power at home and things like that. And you basically, you on a time scale, you accelerate it. So it's like, it's basically neoliberalism, but instead of happening over the course of 2 decades, it happens over the course of maybe a year to 2 years, you know, which means that you're going to see like fundamentally the same effects and trends that are present in a neoliberal system. For example, the massive inequality, wage inequality that we are now accustomed to, and the sort of the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, etc., etc. But it's going to happen way faster and more severely than your average neoliberal country. You know, this is effectively, this is what happened to Russia immediately post Soviet Union. Like after the collapse of the Soviet Union, a lot of Western countries and businesses proposed the use of shock therapy to basically liberalize Russia, and not in the good way, right? Not liberalize in terms of bring democracy to Russia, liberalize in terms of allow private capital in Russia to flow freely. You know, what the they gotta fix the bullet on this track. Thank you for the sympathy shock. I appreciate that. And Javier Milei is doing the same thing in Argentina, it seems, which has predictably had disastrous consequences for the national economy, for wages, for workers, and all the rest of those associated factors. Sorry, Rosalina. Not a great first race. Okay. Hopefully things will get better after that. Let's go another one. Alright, from Buenos Aires. Argentina's poverty rate jumped from almost 42% to 53% during the first 6 months of Javier Milei's presidency, the statistics agency reported Thursday. A steep rise reflecting the pain of the country's most intense austerity program in recent memory. Like I said, this is basically austerity politics and neoliberalism turned up to the worst and fastest possible degree. The government's finding that Argentina's half-year poverty rate in 2024 had surged to its highest level since 2003, when the country was reeling from catastrophic foreign debt default and currency devaluation, marks a setback for the far-right economist. Economist is being applied very generously here. Milei is the Central American equivalent of like a praxeologist. He's a libertarian crank whose economics relies on rejecting empirical evidence. I'm not joking when I say that. He comes from a school of economics, like a philosophical school of economics, that holds that empirical evidence is bad and misleading because it like leans towards left-wing policy making or something like that. You can look up praxeology if you want to know the specifics on how they view empirical data, but it's something like that. So far, foreign investors and the IMF, to which Argentina owes 43 billion, have cheered his controversial fiscal shock therapy. I wonder why the IMF would have positive things to say about a third world country putting itself further in debt to the IMF. You know, I wonder what could possibly be going on there. see that has successfully pulled down the country's monthly inflation from 25.5 last December to 4.2% in recent months. They're talking about like monthly inflation, not yearly inflation, right? Okay, they specify. The yearly inflation rate in Argentina is still like 230%, which is like really fucking bad. Ooh, got him. That was better. Still not great, though. I almost played that last part perfectly. Bracing for negative news hours before the poverty report's release, Milei's spokesperson sought to deflect the blow in a lengthy press conference. The government inherited a disastrous situation. The classic, it's not our fault because things were bad when we got into office. So actually, it's the previous government's fault. Yeah, sure. Never mind the fact that, by all accounts, things are worse now than when Milei took office. Even though, like, obviously anybody can acknowledge reasonably that, like, Argentina was not in a good spot and has not been for most of its history, economically speaking. You know, it doesn't help their case that they only made things worse when they got into office. The right-wing libertarians. They left us on the brink of being a country with essentially all of its inhabitants poor. No, actually. Poverty was bad in Argentina, but like this article says, it was like 40-something%. It was like 40-ish%. And then poverty increased in the span of 6 months by 10%. That is a historically bad first 6 months of administration. Like, you gotta be a special kind of stupid in order to fuck a country up that badly, when you're already that fucked up. And most people are like, well, nowhere to go but up. And then you still somehow made things not only worse, but 40% to 50% poverty worse. Alright. I know what I want to do with this mushroom, I think. And that is I'm going to hold it. Ordinarily, I would be tempted to take the shortcut, but there have been blue shells and stuff. So I'm just gonna do the dock cut. There we go. Okay, yeah, that was probably a good call. Yeah, okay. It's going backwards. Ah, dang. Whoa, I'm in first now? That's kind of wacky. Really? No blue shells? Huh. Okay, now we got a good race. That's good. Oh boy. Unlike previous populist governments that kept consumer spending high at the cost of a massive budget deficit, which is ultimately the correct decision, Milei dismantled price controls, cut subsidies on energy and transport, and devalued the peso by 54% in December after taking office. Energy and transport being two things that keep the economy active and would thus be your lifeline for ever fixing an economic crisis. The austerity measures and deregulation have marked a brutal contraction in spending power and dragged the economy deep into recession. Let's see. These austerity measures have helped drive down the yearly inflation rate from a peak of almost 300% in April. Don't ask who was president in the month of April 2024. The answer may shock you. Let's see. His government's budget proposal expects annual inflation to drop to 122.9% by the end of the year, but the months ahead will be tricky, economists say. After its initial decline, monthly inflation has been stuck around 4% since July. Milei's 2025 budget proposal aims for a fiscal surplus of over... How much is that? 1.3%. There we go. Okay. I'll take that. Okay. This track is pretty wild with it, I'm not gonna lie. It's hard for me to talk about anything, let alone read a news article while I'm playing this track. Second? I'll take second. Okay. Are required for the spending cuts. Okay, so everything Milei wants to do in Argentina revolves around cutting spending, which is a great way to put your country deeper in the hole. Especially when you're cutting spending on things that are investments that pay for themselves, that like pay dividends down the road. Things like energy and transit, like transportation and stuff. People turning to side hustles. Things are really fucking desperate. Here we go. One person had was interviewed by AP that said they had like a a $10 per month electricity bill, like energy bill, before Milei's presidency, and then as a result of the like immediate shock therapy policies, her bill skyrocketed by 830%, which means it is now $83 per month. Which might not sound like a ton for somebody in America or potentially even another comparable first world country, but you got to remember that like the purchasing power in Argentina is much different than somewhere like the US. $83 a month isn't necessarily that much to be paying for like utilities in America, but that's a lot for somewhere like Argentina where things are usually a lot cheaper. And I think for me, the biggest thing is that that's an 830% increase. Like that's doesn't matter what the purchasing power is. That's going to hurt, especially because that is not the only thing. It's far from the only thing that has been subject to such drastic price increases, you know? That's good. I like that. Nice. Shock dodge. We love to see it. First place. We take those. I recognize also, it's easy for me to talk a big game about what's happening in Argentina. It's easy for, like, because, you know, your average person isn't in a position where they would have to develop a coherent answer to such a storied economic crisis that is Argentina, right? But I want to give a simple answer just to illustrate exactly how bad the libertarian response to this was, right? What is the nature of the crisis? Argentina is massively in debt. Not that different from a lot of countries, right? Argentina is also experiencing, like, what, cost of living crisis, things like that. The solution to debt like that is actually to, well, let's take a lesson first from Vietnam. Tell the IMF no. Argentina is in a lot of debt to the IMF. When the IMF comes to collect, just say, yeah, no, you're not getting that money back. Fuck you. What is the IMF going to do about it? What, does the United States plunge Argentina further into poverty? It's not like they could do much worse than they already have. Especially because, people are so ready and willing to blame the debt collectors. And, of course, we've also seen, like Vietnam did in just telling the IMF, no, fuck off, the IMF isn't even going to come to collect. You know? Like, fuck your debt payments. Here's what we're actually going to do instead. This goes back to another video I made. You instead of like trying to just hollow out the entire country to pay back one debt to the IMF, you instead go further into debt to pay for things that will pay dividends in the next several years. For example, energy, transportation, and infrastructure. Public health, public education. All of these things, even in a liberal economic framework, you can engage with these in an anti-austerity sort of way. If you invest in the social safety net, then the social safety net has a greater chance of yielding returns in the form of a more economically active society where more people are able to participate, to spend money, and things like that. Society will grow wealthier even as you are in debt, which will make the IMF look upon you favorably, because even though you're not paying back that debt, you are developing, what's it called, like positive credit, where it's like, oh, if we lend money to these people or to this government, they are going to use that money productively, right? It's a global debt economy. At some level, we have to acknowledge that paying back a debt is not realistic, such is the case with Ow. Wait, that was my own green shell. I already hit somebody with that. Why did I get sniped by my own green shell after it hits? This game's wacky. Yo, what's up, Xylon MK? Welcome back. I'm holding this for dear life. If I can maintain third, I will maintain third. Been too busy with school to do anything during the afternoons. That's fine. That's fine. Look, you don't gotta. You don't have to justify why you haven't been in my chat. This is a live stream, right? Like you have. If you have actual homework to do, then you know do your actual homework. You don't have to justify that. Yeah. This is where we're trying to create a low pressure environment here. Economy's contracted 3% so far this year. As much as I'm loath to cite liberal statistics as in the sense that it's like statistics that liberals care about that aren't necessarily indicative of people's well-being. Hello, welcome back to chat. Globalize my agenda. The economic growth numbers of a given country are useful, not necessarily in the sense that economic growth means people are doing well, but in the sense that economic contraction means that people are doing poorly. Number go up isn't always good, but number go down is almost always bad. You know, like in terms of economic growth numbers, an economic contraction of 3% is almost always a bad thing, especially if that's a yearly thing. You know, and it's clear that this economic contraction is being driven by austerity politics, the hollowing out of Argentinian public safety nets and you know, government-funded programs and things like that, things that have been keeping people afloat to such an extent where Argentina was at least semi-stable, if in massive debt. And what you need to do, again, like I said, like a very simple and functional answer to the austerity crisis and debt crisis that Argentina was facing is to, number one, don't pay any of your debts to the IMF, tell them to go fuck themselves, and then number two, spend more money but in ways that will pay off in the future, like public education, public health, infrastructure, public transit, energy. Basically, you want to redistribute wealth downwards in such a way that the populace is wealthy enough for the economy to grow naturally. And you know, so people will be out there spending money, and so that when the IMF comes back, you say, hey, look, our economy has grown. We're still in massive debt, yeah, but like, look how much the line is going up, right? And that's how you engage with a modern debt economy. You know, because as we've learned from other countries in the past, like Vietnam, the IMF doesn't come to collect. You know, they're not going to actually, like, what are they going to do? Send in the military? They have no means of collecting on that debt. Unless literally the UN gets involved, but the UN can't do jack shit. You know? Watching your stream last Tuesday in my computer science class. Cool. Money go up is almost always a W. Almost always. Not always, but almost always. For the country. What do you think is an appropriate proportion of debt to GDP? I don't know, and I don't think there, truth be told, I don't think there is a correct answer for that. You work with whatever debt you have, and ideally your debt will never be paid back in full, realistically speaking, because this is a debt economy. You can't like operate in the modern global economy without having debt. But you want to see the debt at least start to decrease. You don't want to pay it off, but you want to see the number stabilize or go down a little bit, right? So whatever the debt to GDP ratio is right now, you want to see that slightly and steadily increase in favor of the GDP. So, like with Argentina, that's why you need to focus on in the short term going further into debt to invest for things that will pay off in the long term, because in the long term that then enables you to stabilize your debt to GDP ratio and to basically freeze the debt economy where it is. I think for most states it should be less than 40%. Like I said, there actually is no correct answer for this. Any concrete number that you give is going to be wrong, right? Does that make sense? Like whatever the debt to GDP ratio is for the United States right now. In the United States' case, it doesn't even matter how much that goes up because the United States is the world's money supply. There is no amount of debt that we could go into that would risk bankruptcy because the entire world depends on us. With other countries, there is a limit, but in the case of somewhere like Argentina, where your debt to GDP ratio, I don't know what the exact number is. Let's just say it's like fucking, it's Argentina, so what, 200%? Let's say their debt is 2 times as big as their GDP, right? Sure. You can make that number bigger. Yeah, please don't crash the stock market. Except, actually, you can crash the stock market all you want. That has no real consequences on people's salaries, usually. If you guys remember the recent, like, Japan stock market crash, or whatever, like, that had no real consequences that were felt elsewhere. Except for in other people's stock portfolios. The stock market only matters for people who invest in the stock market. It's 70% in Argentina? Oh, great. Okay, cool. So, like, debt is 70% of that country's GDP. That is way less bad than somebody like Milei or any of the austerity liberals. The companies will do poorly. Oh, the stock market? No, the companies will do fine. The companies will only do poorly if their entire pool of capital relies on stocks and only stocks, right? I mean, that's part of the problem with a capitalist system. Yeah, won't ever anybody think of the poor companies. No, but like in Argentina's case, you know, that 70% debt to GDP ratio, you just got to go further into that. Maybe make that like, I don't know, anywhere from 75 to 80%. Use that money on to have like regular spending, to have like a sustained spending increase on not only social safety nets, but like public infrastructure and essential sectors that will pay off in the long run. If need be, you can also do protectionist policy making, which, you know, you would need to consult Argentinian history to understand the mistakes that have been made there, because there were mistakes made. And then effectively, if you craft like a New Deal-esque package the right way, then, you know, you're good. You've stabilized the debt, and you know, you'll start to see economic growth come back. You'll start to see the standard of living increase, and basically you've gone from post-war Russia kind of numbers to like now you're a stable social democracy, right? This isn't some sort of unsolvable quandary. Like a lot of I know there are a lot of liberal leaning news outlets and whatnot, liberal in the sense of like capitalism, that want to make this seem like it is an unsolvable crisis, or that it is a crisis that is so bad that it doesn't really have a clear answer. There is a clear answer. It's just an uncomfortable answer for the IMF. And as a result, they kind of want to bury the lead a little bit because the IMF wants its goodies. Does that make sense? During all the lecture notes I posted, I read the entire thing 2 hours before the lecture and just slacked off in the lecture if it wasn't examples. Sick. You'll love to hear it. But yeah, that's what's going on in Argentina. Like, I don't expect this to ever be fixed, really, by not by liberals anyway. if you get a left-wing populist, they might do something bold enough to be able to fix this. But at this point, it actually would take, in terms of political will, it is genuinely difficult because it would take some like Castro Sankara tier economic protectionism and like confrontation between Argentina and like the World Bank and the IMF and basically the people that have put Argentina in debt in the first place. You know, it's just a matter of like betting, okay, if we actually want to fix the problem, then we will do so, and let's just hope that we don't get assassinated, because like there is a concrete answer to this sort of stuff, you know. In fact, there are a lot of economists, AP refers to what economists have had to say on the matter. There are a lot of economists that actually agree, because of certain economic protectionist policymaking and the rapid growth being experienced in the third world, a lot of the global south is starting to catch up to the global north. Now, some of that also is wrapped up in the baggage of outsourcing production there, and so there is literally more industrial production happening in the third world now than in the first world. But the gap is starting to, on a country versus country basis, it is starting to shrink a little bit, and keep in mind that Argentina is part of that block. They're part of the third world, or the global south, whatever you want to call it. Damn it, I went all the way wide there. IMF sounds so relatable when you put it that way. I want my goodies too. Yeah, well, in this case, the goodies that the IMF wants is debt that it bullied the third world into taking by means of implied military force, and that it is now coming to collect. Effectively, if we're thinking about this in terms of kids want candy, the IMF is the fucking schoolyard bully that's shaking you down for your lunch money. Except nowadays, it's questionable whether or not they actually have the power or leeway to shake you down for your lunch money. Yeah, it's like, give us everything you have, basically. Alright, nobody dodged that shock. That's good for me. I kind of have to use this here. Damn it. Fifth? That's actually pretty good for how far behind I was. I'll take fifth. Anyways, I feel like you guys deserve also to know exactly why the stream is going to be a bit shorter today, and why I'm only going to do, I think, an hour of stream. And that's because I've been busy today and will continue to be busy. I got, like, this morning, I got a random burst of motivation to do video editing, to, like, edit segments, because I had been putting out banger after banger. And so I wanted to, like, go through and do that. So I had been doing that this morning, and I will probably continue to do that this afternoon. In fact, this morning I also uploaded one of them to my channel. What do you think is better, Chinese investment or IMF investment? Chinese investment, and it's not even a question. Like, it's not even close. More dislike bomb bait? Yeah, true. I love posting the dislike bomb bait, because it's so funny. All I gotta do is not read the comments, and then fucking jokes on them. I'm gaining in the algorithm. Like, as much as I am critical of China, probably more than your average leftist, right? Like, if you have the choice between accepting a loan from the IMF or accepting a loan from China, which then is basically a question between, do I want to go into debt to China or do I want to go into debt to America? You want to go into debt to China. Like, if you have that option, because China is going to be more lenient with the terms of, like, paying back that debt precisely because America already has all of the like a lot of economic power in the world. America has no reason to make a loan appealing to a certain country because they know that they have them by the balls. China is in a like is not a global superpower in the way that the United States is, right? They sort of have to make up for lost ground and lost time. And so effectively what you're getting is a slightly less shitty IMF loan when you go to China, right? Like when China loans money. I think it was, like, to put it simply, as much as obviously every country has their own geopolitical motives for why they do things, I think there was one third world politician or scholar or somebody who said that when China visits, we get a hospital. When the UK visits, we get a lecture. You know? Poking fun at Trump's eating the dogs thing and all his followers freak out. Like my friend said, did a video like that. Oh, that's funny. I like that. I just got first. You know, you have to make sacrifices with your foreign policy while taking loans from China too. Yes, you do. Yeah, I'm under no delusion that like there's not going to be any strings attached to a loan that you take from fucking China, right? Like you're going to have to make a lot of concessions when you're taking a loan from any foreign country, especially China, because they're big, they have interests. If you're in a position where you need to take a loan from them, you're not in much of a position to refuse a lot of those interests. For example, they'll probably want a lot of very favorable trade and business deals, much like you would see with many other countries, including the United States, giving loans and stuff. But what China is also likely to do that the U.S. isn't is invest in your country in a sort of Belt and Road Initiative kind of way. The Belt and Road Initiative for China was basically this massive infrastructure project where, you know, they want to create a sphere of influence by investing in the infrastructure of other countries and cultivating positive geopolitical relationships that way. Does that imply leverage? Absolutely. But the kind of infrastructure that they are building would be things like hospitals and railways. Whereas in the United States, I've seen this firsthand when I go to when I went to Morocco last. The kind of infrastructure and stuff that the United States builds are, number one, military bases because of the United States, but then number two, a lot of the stipulations of loans offered by the United States will be that, like, you have to be friendly to Saudi Arabia and you have to build car-dependent infrastructure, which absolutely hollows out the pocketbooks of any country. You know, you want to talk about a debt trap, there's your debt trap. I heard when they're doing those projects, they make countries hire Chinese workers and not locals. Is that true? Yes, I believe that is true. I mean, it's not like the locals are getting paid either way, right? You know, in fact, depending on the terms of the loan, that might be a favorable outcome compared to what America does, which is just outsource jobs to where there's no labor protection, so people work but then still don't get paid. You know? I don't know. That could actually, I think that's true, but that could actually, like, depending on the circumstances, that could actually swing either way in terms of which country it makes look better or worse. James. Wow, first is way up there. Guess it's a contest for, like, second or third now. I got third. Got this smart foreign policy. You gain global political influence and work for your people. Yeah. Yeah, China has been pretty smart with the way it pursues its geopolitical objectives, at least over the past 10-ish years. The United States has been actually a bit less smart because the United States has been on top for so long that you know there's grown a sort of sense of institutional complacency where the US government basically no longer believes that they have to try, right? You know, if that makes sense, which is in part why the United States is offering such shit terms on its loans and in terms of like foreign investment projects, because the genuinely the United States doesn't believe that we have to provide a compelling alternative because of how much power and notoriety we have, right? Which has opened up the playing field for China to then basically almost take inspiration from the exploitative loans that most other countries, including the United States, do, but then like knock off a couple of the bullet points to make it look comparatively more appealing, and then be able to build their own geopolitical corner of the world that way. And in my view, I think that this is like a wake up call for the United States to basically start taking notes that we need to stop fucking telling everybody to be on good terms with Saudi Arabia, a country that I don't even fucking know why we're allies with. And then like we should also probably just start moving away from the automotive like petrol economy and start moving towards a more public transit centric model of investment, you know? Because if we basically take what China's doing, offering loans with like pretty all right conditions, at least relative to what the United States typically offers, we could basically, the United States has all the resources and tools necessary to be better than China at doing what China does in geopolitics, right? The only reason that the United States doesn't do it is because we choose not to do it. You know, we choose to offer loans with really shit, like terms, like basically with really fucking bad terms and conditions or whatever, you know? But we don't have to do that. In fact, it would probably be a more efficient like strategy of political sphere building if the United States offered more favorable terms to the countries that we loan money to, and invested in more sustainable infrastructure projects that didn't involve reliance on like Saudi Arabia or any of the other petrostates in the Middle East. Same for my country. They pick random fights with the non-Western powers all the time out of nowhere. Yeah. Oh no. Fuck shit, get hit, I suppose. And I somehow got third still. This has been a very confusing session. Considering how America hasn't had a great president a couple decades, that complacency, false sense of we're on top could end really bad if Kamala and whoever is after Kamala sucks. It could. It does. This does have the potential to go really bad. And I think that that becomes more likely the more that Kamala Harris tries to hold the same course on foreign policy, right? Like there's some indication that she's going to handle Gaza and Lebanon and Israel differently. But as long as the discussion is on that, as long as the American foreign policy discussion is solely centered around sort of military action and where we send weapons and stuff, then things are not going to get meaningfully better in an economic sense, you know? Canada's in the same position because Trudeau gotta go. Yeah, here's like the fucked up thing with places like the US and Canada, especially with Canada because of like what Trudeau's been doing in terms of like cracking down on strikes and shit. Yeah, in terms of complacency, it's like the complacency that exists there, both domestically and internationally, means that, like, Trudeau fucking deserves to lose, right? But he does not deserve to lose to conservatives who would be even worse, right? Like, you know, god damn. Same thing to a certain degree with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and like the Democratic Party. They deserve to lose. Their policy ideas are all over the place at the best of times. They do not deserve to lose to the Republicans. You know, they went into the sorting hat and they picked out the one set of political positions that the Democrats and other liberals do not deserve to lose to, which makes things really annoying. We might go through 4 U.S. presidents under Trudeau's reign. How long has he been in power? Hasn't it been since like 2010 or something? It's 2015. Okay, so yeah, it would be Obama, Trump, Biden, and then yeah, if Trudeau is still in power in January of 2025, then yeah, it'll be 4 U.S. presidents. Woke CIA drone pilot, welcome back. Good to see you. At least you're lucky with your country's presidents having political positions. Oh, is your country's is Lithuania's president just like a fucking like it doesn't want to commit to any political beliefs of any kind? Because that's fucking annoying. Me who doesn't study USA. Oh yeah, that's right. You're Canadian, huh? Oops. Oh yeah, center right dude who just always plays the middleman. Yep. Seems about right. I think I'm gonna get 5th. Okay. Obama was unfulfilled potential. Trump is Trump and Biden is Biden. Dude, yeah, Obama, I would even go as far to say Obama was like massive failure on the part of liberalism to embrace progressives. He took the wind out of the sails of the progressive movement in a way that I've never seen. Trump is like, well, yeah, Trump is Trump. He opened up the U.S. for an overtly fascist movement, and then like, I guess yeah, you would just say Biden is Biden because his presidency was like okay. It was pretty good. In fact, if it weren't for if it weren't for Joe Biden's actions on with respect to Israel, Joe Biden might have had one of the best presidencies we had seen in a long time, which on one level speaks to how shit presidencies have been in the United States for a long time. But also, like, most of the things that Biden did do when he wasn't just doing nothing were pretty good. You know, with the exception of, I think, the rail strike, he pulled out of Afghanistan. He walked the picket line with unions and made it clear through repeated NLRB dealings and negotiations that his government would be more friendly to unions than to management. And like, he did pass that infrastructure bill, which was 40 years too late and like $5 trillion short, but it was more than nothing, strictly speaking. The Afghan pullout was already a done deal. Yeah, but nobody would have had the balls to go through with it for the most part. Like, the fact that Joe Biden actually went through with a plan to pull U.S. troops out of anywhere that was already on the table, like, the plan had already been delayed. It was supposed to happen while Trump was still president. Trump decided not to do it, to kick the can down the road so that so Biden would have to be the president to do it. And Biden decided, you know what? Yeah, I'll just do it. Fuck it. You know? But then, of course, that was like the only good thing internationally that Biden did outside of, like, I don't know, I guess supporting Ukraine. in the sense that like you don't just let Russia steamroll Eastern Europe. You know, that's all right. And then he ruined all of it fucking immediately when October 7th happened, and he decided $1 squadrillion to Israel. Yeah. Given the collapse of the Afghan national forces and Rush pullout, it would seem the pullout was inevitable to avoid a huge embarrassment. Yeah, for the most part, it was inevitable. I think, you know, again, it was just a matter of, like, when did you want to do it? And I guess, you know, they decided probably, like, all right, 20 years is long enough. Or I guess at the time it would have been 18 years. But like I said, it's kind of like it was 3 years of some all right stuff, 2.5 to 3 years of some all right stuff, followed by the worst foreign policy that you would ever see, and that like pretty much dwarfs the amount of good shit that Biden did. Because for all of the things that he helped along or used his power as a president to do directly or something like that domestically, for all the people that helped, as many people have probably been killed in Gaza and Lebanon and whatever, or like a comparable amount of people. It's fucking bad. Like it was, in fact, I would describe it as a historic fuck up that Biden had like the record of one of the most pro-labor presidents in anybody's lifetime in America. Like most pro-labor functionally since FDR. And then like in 1 year flushed it all down the toilet by sending weapons and shit to Israel as they were glassing the Gaza Strip. You know? Like, imagine if FDR was known for all the shit that he did in the United States. You know, the New Deal, Public Works Administration, NLRA, NLRB, and then just decided, yeah, actually, we're supporting Nazi Germany. Like, fucking what? That's what he would be remembered for in the history books. You know? As it is, he opposed Nazi Germany at the, you know, when the United States was brought into the Second World War. Obviously, you know, geopolitical reasons, that's a can of worms and whatever. Yeah, and the internment camps were really fucking bad, and he is remembered for that, but at the core of it, what he's also remembered for is all of the social democratic reforms that he helped to pass, and in fact used massive pressure to get through, that saved the United States from the Great Depression. Imagine if, like, the Japanese internment camps had been an order of magnitude worse, or even more so. Like I said, imagine if on top of that, he had, like, supported the Nazis, you know? Because I think that's the closest possible analog that I can reach for there, right? Like, Joe Biden supporting Netanyahu is basically like if FDR or you know, another American president, had they been elected at the time, supported the Nazis in Germany during the Second World War. You get what I'm saying? Like, it is truly a fuck up of historic proportions that could have been avoided. I'll take 6. Probably do one more race and then that'll be it for this live stream. Up here, Poiliev is like if Trump had common sense. Nah, Poiliev is like if Trump was competent, which means he'll destroy Canada even harder than what Trump did in the United States. Right? They speak in such a similar way? Yeah, because Poiliev is a far-right nut job. You know? All far-right politicians sound basically the same. You know? In fact, Poiliev would be similarly detrimental to Canada, if not as bad, as Trump in 2024, because unlike in 2016 or in 2020, the entire apparatus of the GOP has been mobilized behind Trump to like pass through a number of the reforms in Project 2025 that would basically turn America into a fascist dictatorship if enough goes right, right? That doesn't exist in Canada. So Poilievre right now, not as dangerous as Trump right now, but Poilievre right now, way more dangerous than Trump in 2016, if that makes sense. He's not going to be a dictator. Well, sure, he's not going to, like, Poilievre might not be a dictator, but he still believes all the, like, fascist shit that most fascists in the United States and elsewhere believe. My man hates immigrants. He hates, brown people. He hates queer people. And through that hatred, he will fucking destroy the Canadian economy. And you better fucking believe that he's going to be more hostile to workers' unions even than Trudeau has been. Which is a high bar to clear, but the far right clears it. Mark my words when I say that Poilievre is a disaster for Canada. And anybody who does not recognize this is a fool. In fact, but yeah, I was gonna say the same shit about like the crisis that produced him or whatever. Like the only reason he's able to do this is because there's been no answer in government. Like all the conditions in government enable Poilievre and his contemporaries to be as far right as they have been. Here we're accepting too many migrants and there's not enough housing? Then build more housing, dumb fuck. What are you doing? You're just engaging in the anti-immigrant politic. And let's be real here. Of all the countries that complain about migration, Canada has the least fucking right to complain about migration of any country. You guys receive such a huge fucking proportion of well-educated migrants, like college degrees, doctors, engineers from other countries, and you guys are still like, yeah, but there's too many of them. Fucking recognize their degrees and put them to work and build more housing, and your economy will be booming for fucking decades. Like, shut the fuck up. We're taking in too many migrants. If anything, you're not taking in enough. God damn. I have no patience for this line of argument. It's dumb as shit. I've explained why it's dumb as shit. This is generations of economic prosperity that you're just throwing in the garbage. Anyway, an hour is about all the energy I have to stream today. It was a short one. University of Waterloo is responsible, TBH. What was that? I think I know what you're talking about. I've read about it in Picty. University of Waterloo. What? 1/3 of their students are immigrants? Oh, okay, so you're just doing more anti-immigrant talking points. No, actually. None of that follows. Like, none of that. I thought you were referring to, like, a series of protests that happened, like, reactionary protests that happened in, like, 2010. I'm not against it. I'm saying slow the fuck down. That means you're against it. I don't think you understand the degree to which you are dumb in this instance. Just build more housing. You're a first world country. You have the wealth and resources not only to take people in, but to accommodate them in a way that will, like I said, guarantee economic prosperity for decades. Yeah, there's going to be growing pains. Fucking deal with it. You have the resources to deal with it, so deal with it. Everything is poison if the dose is big enough, even immigration. Yeah, but Canada has fucking... how many people does Canada have living there? It's like 25, 30 million, and you're taking, what, like 100,000 or so at most per year? Like, that's fucking chump change. Especially if they concentrate in big cities and form ghettos. No, don't tell me I have to have the anti-immigrant fucking conversation with you two, alright? One thing at a time. First, I'm going to address Xylem MK. More? Okay, we'll say 200,000. How many? Let's see. Canada immigration yearly. Almost 500,000 yearly. Okay. So there's going to be some growing pains. So, here's what you do. Start up new jobs programs, build more housing, recognize their fucking degrees. It is a massive obstacle to immigration in Canada that, like, when immigrants come there, well-educated immigrants, they can't get a job because Canadian government has to send them back to school again. Recognize their degrees, goddammit. Put them to work. You've expedited the process by like tenfold. Build more affordable housing, and then like there we go. If you've actually listened to Poilievre, his big talking point is that we need to build more houses. Homeless shelters are through the roof. I don't care to listen to Poilievre, and I also don't believe you or Poilievre. Even if Poilievre says that, there's no fucking chance that he believes it. My man is an ultra-nationalist. I guarantee you what's going to happen is that when he has control of the government, he's going to shut down the construction of affordable housing. And when he refers to housing, he means internment camps. He's going to build internment camps for migrants. This is something that Republicans have said in the United States as well, that, oh, immigrants have nowhere to go. We should build immigrant cities on like the border of such and such state. This is like, these talking points are like already played out. Man sees the problems of capitalism, has no theoretical understanding of why blames other victims. True. Now globalize my agenda. Let me get to what you said, because this is immigrant cities might work, not gonna lie. That's Hitlerite shit. What you understand what you're saying is just build ghettos to house all the immigrants, put them in a box. That's ghettos. Yeah, immigrant cities are an absolutely shit idea. But let me globalize my agenda. Let me address what you said about the ghettos and the concentration of immigrants in big cities. Obviously, people are, maybe, there is no maybe about it. I've seen these talking points before. There's a reason that, you know, immigrants concentrate in big cities, and that's because that's where the work is, right? Everybody goes to the city. Like, sure, you get some immigrants in the countryside, but most people are going to live in cities because, well, most people live in cities. The fact that immigrants are in ghettos, that they sort of form ethnic enclaves and whatever, that has happened, is explainable by the sort of social isolation that they encounter from racists when they enter the country. The reason that those enclaves exist is because broader society has systematically shut them out. You know? That does not seem like it would solve the problem of integrating immigrants in society. Yeah, you know, building a designated, segregated place for immigrants in society does not, I don't think that helps integrate them, i.e. desegregate them from broader society. In fact, the United States has a pretty good system of this, where immigrants usually will go to public school, and you know, they mingle with the natural born American kids and whatever. Sometimes it's a lot. If you walk through Vilnius today, every second person is speaking a Slavic language. Don't get back on the fucking anti-Russian talking points, all right? Just because Russia is invading Ukraine right now does not give you the right to hate Slavic minorities. We have enough land to build houses. It's that simple, especially in Western BC. Yeah, I mean, well, look. I think the fact of the matter is, like, the what you're talking about, immigrant cities, you don't want to build immigrant cities. You want to build housing in cities and towns that already exist. We have so much fucking land in BC to build the houses. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I agree, right? Like, you have the land, build the fucking houses. I don't hate them for being Slavic. Yeah, you do. We've had this discussion before. I know where this leads. But no, I want to get back to the other thing. Ugh. Let me finish one line of discussion, then I'll move on to the next one, right? You were talking about immigrants, like, obviously immigration in a very large dose can be detrimental purely because of how much of a weight it ends up being at the time. And that is true. But even at the height of immigration, we have never reached that point. We are only going to reach that point when the climate crisis reaches its zenith, like its apex, when hundreds of millions of people are like fleeing from third world countries, billions even, and having to settle in countries that aren't seeming to experiencing that. African immigrants seem to have no problem learning our language. Learning the language of a country, while it is a significant socioeconomic lubricant, is not a legal requirement and should not be in order to live in said country. I'm not having this discussion with you right now. We've had it before, and I've even threatened to ban you over it because of the fucking Hitlerite talking points you've engaged in. But no, you gotta, like, affordable housing obviously is a good idea. Like everybody here agrees, you build more housing, but it's important not to just build a completely new settlement unless that settlement is sort of a like outcrop of an existing one. You have to have a good reason for building housing where you're building it, which means you're not going to build an immigrant city where you put all the immigrants in a box. No, what you do is you build housing in cities that already exist, and you sort of you make rent subsidization and stabilization programs available to new immigrants that are moving into those cities. For example, in Toronto, in fucking Montreal, all those cities along that like big line. I see your talking points about immigrants, immigrant city. Okay, yeah, yeah. I need you guys to get it, right? I need you guys to get what the issue is that we're talking about here and how blatantly the obfuscation is. Take the open land we have around our big cities and build fucking houses. There we go. Yes. Build up and out in and around cities that already exist. Could you explain how this is a pro-Hitler argument or genocidal at all? Sure. Now that it seems I've addressed the housing stuff with the Ewan's Island and stuff from earlier. I was seeing it more though, like if it's asylum seeking, but in a city. Yeah, I guess. I mean, like one man's immigrant is another man's asylum seeker, right? Nobody really wants to leave their home country, so asylum seekers and immigrants come up for pretty similar reasons, or migrate for pretty similar reasons. They're escaping pretty dire circumstances, right? But yeah, I suppose so. So, the whole they don't want to speak our language furthers the othering of that group, right? For example, in the United States, I don't want anyone to abandon their culture or ethnic identity. Okay, good. Then you should allow them to keep speaking their language if that's what they so choose. For example, well, first of all, language is a pretty big part of identity, and people may feel more comfortable speaking that language. That's fine. If they don't want to speak a certain language, then they shouldn't have to, although, that could create some tension. For example, in the United States, a lot of kids that go to public school are children of Hispanic parents. They don't speak English very well. Now, they'll learn English in school and whatever, but there's a divide there where their parents, having grown up learning a certain language and not learning whatever, their parents aren't going to speak English, right? Not for the most part. I'll get to that in a second, Xylan. So a lot of times, instruction in school will actually be offered in Spanish. A lot of school documentation will be both in English and Spanish. I saw this when I was growing up because there are a lot of kids who speak Spanish at home, and that facilitates the process of people learning English in a way that like doesn't force them to only engage with like the dominant language. Does that make sense? So you want to sort of like, what's the term? Grandfather it in, like you should be able to speak Lithuanian. It's probably just cultural divide. We're very protective of our language here. How many people tried to wipe it out throughout history? I understand that the sort of historical baggage that is loaded down on top of this discussion and whatnot. But I think for example, in Lithuania, if you're offering instruction, if there's a sizable ethnic minority, whatever, you're offering dual language instruction and you're teaching kids that how to speak both languages, that's fine, and the issue will actually resolve itself with time. We've seen this throughout history with Italian Americans too, and with Arab Americans, with Irish Americans, and right now with Hispanic Americans. There is a natural integration process that the talking points of they don't want to assimilate only prevents from happening. Let people speak their language. Some people might come into your storefront and be a dick about it, whatever. You have the right to ask them to leave. They could, I guess, stay if they want, whatever. But this is a question of this is a question of, do you want to make people feel like they're not part of society, or do you want to, put up with their shit, let their kids go to school and have that be that, right? Does that make sense? So with the example that we've talked about at length before of let's say a Russian family in Lithuania, they speak Russian at home, they don't know Lithuanian super well. You're surrounded by Slavic superpowers, populations million. You have to understand why we are hesitant with that. I understand. You're just wrong here. You're just wrong to like sort of lump all of this blame on like an ethnic minority in your country. Like, imagine if there was an English speaking minority in another country where like, you know, they spoke English at home. And yeah, you know, it's sort of understandable. They'll get weird looks in public maybe, but like their kids are going to be learning the language of the land in school, right? We've made concession after concession to them. No, you haven't. Let's go back to the example. Let's say you have a Russian family living in Vilnius, right? And the Russian parents, they don't know Lithuanian. As grown-ups, it's their full right to if a Lithuanian lives... All right, I'm muting you for 10 minutes so I can actually go through this without you interrupting me, okay? For example, Russian family in Lithuania, in the capital city, let's say, big city. The grown-ups in that family, not likely to know Lithuanian, and that's fine. It is their right to not necessarily learn that. They have the right to, you know, decide not to maybe go to night school or whatever it is, to take night classes to learn the language of the country. That's going to make life harder for them, but that's their choice. They speak Russian at home. That's what they feel most comfortable speaking. Fine and good. Their kids are going to go to school. And in school, there should be dual language instruction because since they speak Russian at home, they'd probably be more comfortable with Russian. But at the same time, most of the kids that they go to school with are going to be speaking Lithuanian. So they should be able to globalize my agenda, globalizes his agenda, gone wrong. True. They should be able to engage with both languages. So you want to offer those without forcing it upon them in such a way that you feel like you're trying to like erase that identity, right? The German army was welcomed by the Lithuanian population in June 41 with joy and as liberators from the wiki on Lithuanian collaboration with the Nazis. Wow, great. You know, glad to know that history is bearing down on this conversation too. You know, maybe Lithuania needs a little bit of denazification courtesy of their neighbors, Poland, and fucking the EU, sans Germany. We do a little bit of memeing here. But that's what I refer to as growing pains. You're going to have some people that don't fit perfectly well. And that's fine. That's part of having a complex society. If you reject anybody for the slightest ethnic and linguistic difference, you are just a Nazi and you want an ethno-state. Functionally is what you want. You said earlier that you don't want people to have to give up on their ethnic and cultural identity. Understand that language is a part of that, and they'll want to engage with that still in whatever way they can, even if they're living in a different country. And that's fine. They are not hurting anybody in so doing. Even if your fifis get hurt, that doesn't mean they're hurting you. That just means you're a sensitive little bitch. All right? How big of a fucking weirdo would I look like if my feelings got hurt every time somebody spoke Spanish at the store? Right? Because that's the reaction that we're fundamentally dealing with here. But let me get back to what Xylan was saying about Mr. Poilievre. Yeah, people be like that. Let me get back to Xylan, what you were saying about Poilievre and his talking points about housing. All of that is disingenuous. How do I know this? Well, let's go to Poilievre's wiki page. Pierre Poilievre. Leader of the Conservative Party. Very good. All right. Let's see. Since he's the leader of the Conservative Party, let's take a look at the Conservative Party webpage. Here, hold on. Conservative Party of Canada. Ideology, conservatism, Canadian. Economic liberalism. There you have it. There is the evidence that Pierre Poilievre is lying about his ideas for affordable housing. He's an economic liberal. Remember when I said in the video, in various points when I've talked about fascism, every negative economic tendency that exists in liberals, fascists also have. Fascism is a strict downgrade from liberalism, but they understand how to use populist rhetoric disingenuously to appeal to people's frustrations. Thus, he recognizes that saying he wants to build affordable housing or whatever, build more housing in general, is a popular talking point. Does he intend to do that? Do the conservatives intend to do that? Fuck no. They're liberals. At least at their economic core. Socially, they are conservative enough that you can attach the label of fascist to them accurately because they would, regress society to a state of conservatism so vile it involves, well, internment camps, immigrant cities, quote unquote, right? That's what I meant when I said that the housing he's most likely alluding to would be, well, we can build the immigrants their own housing, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, builds a city out in the middle of nowhere with like segregation and separate resources, right? Conservatives are not serious about this issue, right? But the fact that you're reacting to the rhetoric that way is the intended purpose and is perfectly understandable, right? Because liberals have so starved people of any compelling economic platform that even the mere mention of it will activate people. It's all or nothing. Fucking full send this shit because Trudeau gotta go. I think that in an election like this, I would probably vote for like the NDP or something. But ultimately, I don't think it matters. I could be Mr. Moralizing lefty about how you should actually not vote for the conservatives because I think that's a fucking bad idea. NDP are sellouts. Sellouts are better than fascists. I don't know what to tell you. The Democratic Party are sellouts, and I vote for them because the alternative is people who want to kill me. I don't feel good about it. NDP expelled Saradama for opposing the genocide. They're fascist too. Like I said, shades of fascism, right? Like, they're liberals. Liberalism being the moderate wing of fascism, or alternatively, fascism being the extremist wing of liberalism. The options are going to be extremely limited, but fundamentally, remind yourself what I'm talking about. Yeah, there we go. I'm voting for fucking French exclusive party and we're separating Quebec from Canada. Critical support. Quebec should be jettisoned into the ocean. But no, like, this is one of the instances where under ordinary circumstances I would advocate on an academic level for like lesser evil voting. Not because I support the candidate or anything like that, but because I recognize that there would be more room to build a grassroots leftist movement when the opposition to said movement is more passive. But in Canada, I don't think it matters that much because of how big of a blowout the Conservatives are projected to win by. I think we should just not have a US president and Canadian prime minister in 2026. Now you're talking. I think we should take over. True. Are you voting for Holocaust Harris this year? No, because I already voted for Holocaust Harris. Like I said, the reason that I vote for the Democratic Party is because what the fuck other option is there available for me to vote for, right? Not voting is like not going to do anything, right? The only way that you can get the Democratic Party to concede to you ever is to be a part of their voting bloc and to be loud and fucking annoying at every possible opportunity. We should take over as US president? That'd be base. President Y2K for president. I'm going to change shit. That's my campaign slogan. But the reason I'm voting for Harris, woke CI drone pilot, because I think you deserve to know, is not that I support Kamala Harris or even any of her like economic policy. She's made it pretty clear that she would be no different than any other Democrat in a suit that could be in the Oval Office. The reason I'm voting for her is because, number one, she represents an upgrade from the fucking bottom of the barrel on Gaza policy, right? Joe Biden is an ideological Zionist. Kamala Harris is only a Zionist of convenience, which means she's susceptible to maybe be pulled one way or the other. That's an opportunity I can't pass up. Number two, Kamala Harris is not going to be a proponent of any of the things that I support as a socialist, right? But Trump is going to be the same more actively. Does that make sense? Trump would be, and the Republicans would be, a very active opposition to leftist movements, to the unions, to workers organizing. The Democrats, being feckless liberals, are a very incompetent and flaccid opposition to those same things. Because liberalism is the moderate wing of fascism, it is less severe on the things it opposes as well. You know, you get what I'm saying? I vote for the liberals because there is no viable left option, right? But I vote for the liberals because in the choice between a weak opposition and a strong opposition, I prefer a weak opposition to my policy objectives. I'm actually eating the dogs. We should. I vote for whoever sucks the least. True. That's what we all go with in this chat. But yeah, if if Claudia de la Cruz was running in the United States, I would vote for her. Right? Is that who I'm thinking of? Claudia. Who's this? Oh, I'm thinking of somebody else. I was thinking of Claudia Sheinbaum, the incoming president of Mexico. Right? No, Claudia de la Cruz running for the PSL in Pennsylvania. I think this is functionally like a throwaway candidacy. Um, you know, if Poilievre ends up doing shit, I'm gonna fucking overthrow him myself. That's why I want to build the houses, and then I'm taking over. Real. Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I said, there, like I could go on the whole lesser evils talking point. Do you think Lithuanians were anti-Semitic pre-World War II? Buddy, that's not a question you have to leave at. Do you think? We have data on this. They were. Everybody was. Germans were just the ones who put all the anti-Semites in government. The Lithuanians were not really. Then you don't know what history looks like. All right. Everybody was really fucking anti-Semitic before World War II. Everybody's still pretty fucking anti-Semitic around the world today as a matter of, like, statistics and stuff. Europe is still a pretty anti-Semitic place. It's time to delete politics, actually. Yeah, pretty true. Smetona, our pre-World War II leaders were very friendly to Jewish people. So true. Our politicians have so many Jewish friends and policies that were good for the Jewish community. We can't be anti-Semitic. Come on, guys. We only expelled the Jews 50 times as opposed to 69 times. Largest mass trial of Nazis pre-Nuremberg took place in Lithuania. Look, you can moralize about that stuff if you want, but the fact of the matter is not enough Nazis were even tried at Nuremberg, so that's not as high of a bar as you think it is. And also, I don't think you're still deflecting from the fact that yes, a lot of fucking people in Lithuania were anti-Semitic, as were basically everybody else in Europe. Smetona banned all Nazi parties. So did a lot of places in Europe. Anyways, I'm not letting this get any more out of control. We've already gone almost 30 minutes over. No segments are going to come out of this purely because I'm still working on stuff in the editing process. Although it might actually be valuable to return to some of this next time, depending on like what kind of segments I feel like making. I don't know. We'll see. Either way, 200,000 are Jewish. Damn, you guys had such a big Jewish population that you were very anti-Semitic towards and oppressing. That's crazy. Look, you realize, globalize my agenda. You don't have to like make excuses for Lithuania and all that shit. It's fine to acknowledge that countries have yeah, Y2K and viewers lose it for 30 minutes straight. That might go hard. You don't have to like globalize my agenda. We are not nationalists here. I mean, some people in chat might be nationalists, but this is not a nationalist live stream. Don't feel like you have to make excuses for your country like having had a very anti-Semitic history. Every country has had a very storied history of anti-Semitism, right? Like that's just the fact of the matter. That's how countries are. That's in fact a lot of people have been anti-Semitic in decades past. That doesn't necessarily need to reflect on you. You are making this anti-Semitism reflect on you more than it needs to, is what I'm saying. You know? Since the Middle Ages, everything you say, you're just getting more and more anti-Semitic. Dog, I know that some countries in Europe were better than others with the Jewish population in the Middle Ages and since then. But every country in Europe has had a very storied history of anti-Semitism. It runs very, very deep. You understand this? And no, you're not like, nobody's ever going to sell me on the talking point that pre-World War II XYZ country was not anti-Semitic. Because yes, they fucking were. I could do like 10 minutes of research and find academic data proving that beyond a shadow of a doubt. Not really. Look, dog, I don't know how to cure you of the brainworm that is nationalism, but I'm going to do my best, all right? It's just not going to happen for in this stream. Lithuania was a safe haven for Jews when they were persecuted in the Russian Empire. And I don't doubt that. But again, this is not a high bar to clear. There were a few countries that were safe havens for the Jewish community when they were persecuted by the Russian Empire. You got to understand just how fucking bad the Russian Empire was to the Jewish population, right? Just because insert country here was a safe haven for Jews during such and such pogrom doesn't mean that that country isn't also anti-Semitic or that people there aren't also anti-Semitic. Lithuania was in the Russian Empire during that time. Yeah, I know. Yeah, dog, you were just on timed out. All right, that's it. I'm finding somebody to raid. You are not going to... So help me God. You guys get away with some shit in my chat. You guys better be on your best behavior. You are not to mention the Jews or nationalism or your country's history in whoever's chat you go into, because they're going to think I'm fucking insane for allowing you people in my chat, all right? Cody Schwab is live. Let's rate him. My man's is practicing Fox. Like I said, leave the nationalism and stuff in my chat where it's somewhere that I can actually deal with it. Don't fucking put any of that shit on Cody, all right? He doesn't deserve this. He's just a gamer. He's a really good gamer too. I'll see you guys next time.